overseas in battle.
Imagine recording a masterpiece that stops the world, only to watch the men in suits lock the master tapes in a vault.
Happy as I could
Erase your name from the ledger and leave you to starve in a rented room.
be. Opened up the letter.
Nashville has always built its golden altars on broken bones, but the worst casualties were never the ones who failed.
Hello, walls.
They were the ones who succeeded too loudly, too honestly, for a machine built on control.
And she up in wall.
Welcome to Country Corner, a cinematic deep dive into the beating hearts and forgotten ghosts of classic country and soul history.
Only walls I'll keep.
Today, we are pulling back the velvet curtain on country stars destroyed by their labels,
A big man wrecks upon his feet.
looking at the dark secrets, corporate betrayals, and systematic silences that nearly erased the greatest voices our world ever produced.
The paradise right up your nose.
Stay with us, because the story waiting at the end of this countdown will completely change how you listen to the radio.
The paradise right up your nose.
Let us count them down. Number 10, Bobby Helms, Fraulein, 1957.
Deep blue water.
The voice was pure liquid gold, ringing out with a warmth that could melt the winter off a cabin roof.
I loved her and left.
When Bobby Helms cut Fraulein in 1957, it sat at the top of the country charts for nearly 4 months. A massive crossover juggernaut that defined an entire era of honky-tonk crossover. Decca Records had a titan on their hands, but Nashville power brokers hate artists they cannot box into a corner. When Helms tried to pivot toward a more sophisticated pop country hybrid, the label didn't just disagree with his artistic direction. They actively sabotaged his follow-up releases, freezing his promotional budget and burying his singles so deep in the cataloging system that even jukebox operators couldn't find them. Behind the scenes, the executives who toasted glasses over his million-selling records were quietly restructuring his royalty contracts to route earnings into corporate slush funds, leaving Helms with pennies on the dollar, while his voice played in every diner from coast to coast. Most fans never knew that during the peak of his commercial dominance, Helms was sleeping in the back of a rusted station wagon outside Nashville, having his Gibson guitar repossessed by the very men who shook his hand on Music Row. He didn't lose his talent. He lost his leverage in a town that views human beings as disposable inventory. When a record label decides you are past your expiration date, they do not just stop calling. They make sure nobody else will ever pick up the phone either. Number 9. Skeeter Davis, The End of the World, 1963. The melancholy hanging over that track was not just acting, it was the sound of a woman who had already survived a lifetime of industry bruises. When Skeeter Davis released The End of the World in 1963, it became a global phenomenon, bridging the gap between Nashville storytelling and pop balladry with devastating grace. But RCA Victor viewed her success as a fluke, a happy accident they intended to control rather than nurture.
Why does my heart?
When Davis used her newfound platform to advocate for civil rights and speak out against the rampant misogyny inside the Grand Ole Opry,
Don't they know?
the label executives punished her by refusing to clear her material for radio syndication, effectively blacklisting her from her own airwaves. Few people realize that Davis was secretly forced by her management to record jingles for industrial cleaning products under a fake name just to pay her mother's medical bills. All while her face graced the cover of international music magazines. The betrayal reached its apex when the label forced her to tour relentlessly while suffering from exhaustion, only to drop her from the roster via a certified letter delivered to her dressing room while she was on stage. They took her vulnerability, turned it into $1 million commodity, and then threw her away like a broken microphone. Number 8. Faron Young, Hello Walls, 1961.
Hello, walls.
They called him the Sheriff, a swaggering powerhouse whose voice could cut through a smoke-filled room like a razor blade.
And she up in wall.
When Faron Young took Willie Nelson's song Hello Walls to the top of the charts in 1961,
Walls, I'll keep you.
Capitol Records made a fortune on his effortless charm. But Young was fiercely independent,
L-I-C.
a man who refused to bow to the Nashville establishment
Censored.
or kiss the rings of powerful booking agents who controlled who ate and who starved on tour.
Of your mate.
When he began producing his own independent publishing ventures to retain ownership of his catalog,
And left us all alone.
Capitol launched a quiet economic war against him, steering promotional slots to younger, more compliant acts,
We can. Hello, sailor.
and canceling his tour support without warning. Behind closed doors,
You know I can't sleep.
label executives spread vicious rumors about his personal life to local radio programmers,
Or else I'll lose.
ensuring his singles died a quiet death before they ever had a fighting chance.
Hello, walls.
What most listeners never discovered was that Young spent the final decades of his life fighting a lonely, bankrupt legal battle just to get the master tapes of his own recordings back from corporate vaults
Lonely night with me.
that treated his legacy like a balance sheet. He spent his entire life building the house of country music, only to find himself locked out in the cold by the very men who furnished the rooms.
Censored, darling. Just
Number 7. Jean Shepard, A Dear John Letter, 1953.
Was overseas in battle.
She was the original rebel girl of Honky Tonk, a fiery vocalist who refused to wear frilly dresses
Was as happy as I could be.
or sing about standing quietly behind her man. When Jean Shepard teamed up with Ferlin Husky for A Dear John Letter in 1953,
Then I opened up the letter.
they shattered the glass ceiling of the country charts, proving a woman could carry a hit single just as hard as any man. But Capitol Records panicked when Shepard asserted creative control over her follow-up album,
My husband wants it now.
demanding she soften her delivery and stick to traditional domestic themes.
Anyhow,
When she stood her ground, the label shelved her recordings for years, effectively freezing her career during her absolute prime to teach her a lesson in corporate compliance.
I was as happy as I could be.
Most fans have no idea that Shepard was barred from joining the all-male inner circles of Nashville decision-makers,
Then I started.
forced to negotiate her own contracts in hotel hallways, while male peers were handed bonuses in executive offices. She spent decades fighting the invisible walls of a machine designed to silence outspoken women. Yet she never lost that sharp, defiant edge. They tried to turn her into a footnote,
Husband wants it now.
but her voice was simply too loud to be locked away. Number 6. Ray Price, Crazy Arms, 1956. The shuffle beat he pioneered became the beating heart of traditional country music,
This heart of mine.
and Crazy Arms laid the blueprint for everything that came after it in Nashville. When Ray Price recorded that track in 1956,
You're someone else's love.
Columbia Records reaped massive financial rewards, turning him into a foundational pillar of the industry.
Reach to hold somebody new.
But Price made the fatal mistake of demanding transparent accounting from a label that treated royalties like a closely guarded shell game.
No suit to up nothing.
When he questioned missing payouts from his international sales, the label executives retaliated by cutting off his access to top-tier session musicians, forcing him to record with unproven studio players to tank his sound. Few people know that Price personally financed the creation of the Cherokee Cowboys touring band out of his own pocket
Take all the love.
because his label refused to provide transit subsidies given to lesser artists who played the corporate game.
They hold somebody new.
They wanted him compliant, grateful, and poor, but Price possessed a dignity that no contract could ever strip away.
Is the arms that reach to.
He walked through the fire of industry betrayal and emerged on the other side as an independent titan,
My troubled mind knows.
proving you can survive the vultures if you refuse to let them eat your soul. Before we move into our top 5,
All the time.
take a second to look around. This is what Country Corner is all about.
Who ain't the word?
We are not here to read Wikipedia pages or recycle the same sanitized PR bios you have heard 1,000 times. We are here for the truth, the grit, and the human stories hiding in the shadows of the recording booths.
Else's love now.
If you appreciate the deep cuts and the real history of the music that shaped our lives, hit that subscribe button,
Hold somebody new.
leave a comment, and stay with us. We are just getting started.
My troubled mind knows suit.
Number 5. Johnny Paycheck, Take This Job and Shove It, 1977.
This job and shove it. I ain't working.
The title was a working-class anthem, but for Johnny Paycheck, it was a prophetic warning about the Nashville machine
Woman of mine, drowning in the pool.
that ultimately chewed him up and spit him out. When he recorded Take This Job and Shove It in 1977,
Right off of my back.
Epic Records made millions off the blue-collar rage of a nation, turning Paycheck into an overnight working-class hero.
Step took all the reason.
But Epic refused to invest in his long-term career stability, treating him as a novelty act
You take this job and shove it.
rather than a visionary country poet,
One of these days I'm gonna blow my stack.
rushing him into low-budget studios to pump out quick follow-up albums with zero artistic oversight.
Take this job and shove it. I ain't
Behind the gleaming glass of the recording booth, Paycheck was battling severe personal demons,
stop, cause I'm a walking.
exacerbated by the predatory contract terms that left him drowning in unrecoverable debt to the label.
This job and shove it. I ain't
Most fans never knew that during the height of his crossover fame, Paycheck was living out of a modest motel room,
You can take this job and
having his performance earnings automatically garnished by label accountants before he even saw a dime of his stage pay.
15 years.
They built an entire promotional campaign around his outlaw persona,
A lot of good folk died. They had a lot.
then abandoned him the moment his personal life cracked under the impossible pressure of their expectations.
Take this job and shove it.
He gave the world an anthem of defiance, but the industry made sure he paid for it with his peace of mind.
I ain't stopping, cause I'm a walk.
Number 4. Little Jimmy Dickens, May the Bird of Paradise Fly Up Your Nose, 1965.
As I was walking down the street.
Standing just under 5 feet tall, he was a giant of showmanship, lighting up the Grand Ole Opry with rhinestone suits
I heard him say as I made my retreat.
and an unmatched comedic timing. When Little Jimmy Dickens hit number 1 with May the Bird of Paradise Fly Up Your Nose in 1965,
May the bird of paradise fly up your.
Columbia Records suddenly saw a cash cow in the pint-sized entertainer.
Found $100 bill.
But when Dickens attempted to negotiate a higher royalty percentage to match the massive merchandise sales generated by his likeness, the label retaliated by cutting off his radio promotion entirely, freezing his singles off the playlists within a matter of weeks. Few people realized that Dickens was locked into a predatory publishing contract that signed away the rights to his signature comedic songs for pennies, enriching corporate executives while he struggled to maintain his extravagant wardrobe on tour. They loved him when he was dancing on their stages, but the moment he asked for a fair share of the table, they slammed the door in his face. He spent years relegated to the margins of an industry he helped build. A living legend, treated like an inconvenient relic by corporate accountants.
Who sung that, Jim?
I did, and I'm glad, Bobby.
Who never understood what music was actually for. Number 3.
Oh, you got a big one.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you very much.
May the
Tammy Wynette, Stand By Your Man, 1968.
Sometimes it's hard.
The voice was an absolute instrument of survival, carrying the weight of 1,000 silent well-being for corporate dividends. She sang about standing by your man, but nobody was ever willing to stand by her when the lights went out and the applause faded. Number 2. Don Gibson, I Can't Stop Loving You, 1958. He wrote some of the most devastatingly beautiful heartbreak songs in American music history, penning masterpieces that would be recorded by everyone from Ray Charles to Elvis Presley. When Don Gibson released I Can't Stop Loving You in 1958, RCA Victor secured a goldmine of timeless songwriting that would generate revenue for decades to come. But Gibson was a deeply sensitive, reclusive artist who struggled terribly with stage fright and clinical depression. Traits that corporate handlers viewed as a liability rather than a cry for help. Instead of providing support, the label exploited his vulnerabilities, forcing him onto grueling, multi-city tours, while withholding his royalties under complex accounting clauses that took advantage of his lack of business education. Few fans ever discovered that Gibson signed away the publishing rights to his most famous compositions under extreme psychological duress during a period of corporate restructuring, losing millions in future royalties that should have secured his family for generations. They took his raw, bleeding heart, translated it into corporate profits, and left him isolated in a Nashville apartment, watching the world sing his words while he struggled to pay his grocery bills. It is a profound tragedy that the man who taught the world how heartbreak sounds was left to suffer his own in complete corporate abandonment. Number 1. Lefty Frizzell, If You've Got the Money, I've Got the Time, 1950.
If you got the money, honey,
The phrasing was so effortless, so naturally fluid, that legendary vocalists like Merle Haggard and George Jones
you got the money, honey,
studied his records like sacred texts, trying to figure out how a human being could put that much soul into a microphone. When Lefty Frizzell burst onto the scene in 1950 with If You've Got the Money, I've Got the Time, he didn't just top the charts, he changed the DNA of country music forever, holding multiple spots on the Billboard charts simultaneously. A feat previously thought impossible. Columbia Records treated him like a golden goose, But golden geese get slaughtered when the corporate appetite turns ruthless. When Frizzell sought to renegotiate his exploitative contract terms, the label systematically froze his recording sessions, blocked his songs from radio syndication, and engineered a quiet smear campaign to convince concert promoters that he was too unreliable to book. Behind closed doors, executives manipulated his royalty statements, siphoning off earnings into corporate reserves, while Frizzell struggled to afford basic medical care for his growing family. What most people never heard was that during his final years of obscurity, Frizzell was forced to work odd jobs just to survive in Nashville, walking past the billboards of the Grand Old Theater, where his records had once broken box office records, entirely forgotten by the very machine that built its empire on his unique genius. He died broke and discarded in a hospital room. A foundational architect of American music, left to rot by executives who only realized his true value after his voice had been silenced forever. Which of these tragic industry betrayals shocked you the most? And which classic country artist do you think deserves our next deep dive investigation?
You got the money, honey.
Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to Country Corner to keep real music history alive, and we will see you next time.